What's going on, everyone, from around the world? Welcome to the IR4 podcast with Brian Masterson, Jeremy Alexander Newsome, and this handsome devil down here, Mr. Travis. Is your last name pronounced Englert? Or
Englert.
Englert. Got it. What nationality is that?
That would be German.
That's German. Right on. I like it. Have you been to Germany before?
I have not.
Got to put on the list, man. That is definitely. Where do you live right now?
We're in around Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Pittsburgh, PA. Gotcha. Right on, man. Well, we're going to have a good discussion today about cryptocurrencies. Folks, stay tuned. Let's rock it out. You guys are amazing. How long have you been in Pennsylvania, Travis?
Well, what happened was born and raised here. I spent about 8 years in the Washington, D.C. area. And then once meeting my wife, moved back up here. So it's been up here again for 4 years or so.
Okay, right on. What was your background in the D.C. area? Were you working in government or?
Heck no. Just doing bunch of like demo and construction stuff on bar and restaurant industry.
Gotcha. Were you in that industry for long? Like just.
So before I went down there at all, I have a landscaping company. I actually have that now again. Mm-hmm. But I had the landscaping company because I'm always into like outdoor work and work with the hands and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Started with winter months, a little bit slower in the grass. So it's just snow is pretty much all you do. So I had family have me come down to DC to do a couple things, right? And then responsibilities built, as you know, people of competence are kind of hard to come by every now and then. So if you're just like competent in something, you get more responsibility. So it was like first it was like paint this window, do this door, and then it was oversee this entire project. It came to that. So that's how I got into that. And then so it's kind of just like working by trial and error and kind of on the job learning kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, totally. Makes ton of sense. When did you fall into the crypto rabbit hole? Because I do want everyone to know, one of the reasons I'm super excited about this interview, because O'Brien, so you have finally met the guy, first dude ever who ever said the word Bitcoin to me. I've never heard.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
really?
This is the dude. Yeah, this is the guy.
How long ago was that?
Is that 13?
Yeah, early 2013. I think you messaged me on Facebook too. And and so that was, and then I started like just asking other people like, hey, have you ever even heard? I've never even heard the term. So where did you hear it, Travis, or where did how that rabbit hole begin for you? Because you are my beginning.
Very good. Yeah, so I think by my nature, I am a person that just questions and always has to dig down to the truth, whether that's be to my detriment or not. Mm-hmm. That's the way I'm wired. And basically distrust in like governments and the way the system is now, and even fractional reserve banking and how lend 1/10 of something can become it's insane when you think about it, how unjust it is, the weights and measures aspect of everything.
Right.
So with that, I got into like the gold and silver stuff, and then there's like the Ludwig von Mises economy kind of stuff, and so that led to other things. So for some time, I had like a libertarian tilt to my view of things, at least economically. And so as far as Bitcoin, I'm pretty sure, like I'm pretty sure I heard it before this event I'm going to tell you about, but my upfront interaction with it was at a Students for Liberty thing in DC. They even had, I'm pretty sure they had a little Bitcoin ATM there where people were putting in like a couple bucks and then getting like a point something of a Bitcoin. And I think at the time it was like $21.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that was the first exposure, and I incorporated into like a few things about writing, and then that kind of moved faster than I would like it to, so I didn't really get to take part in it like I wanted to. I actually was probably using it more to use, not so much. It's like the opposite of our problem now, where it's more, it's, volatility is its own crutch in a way. Because the mass adoption can't get there when the volatility is like it is. So I was actually using it before those really volatile times, even though the really volatile times, I guess, began from the very beginning, if you really think about it.
Right.
So what that opened up that cryptocurrency hole? What other cryptocurrencies did you start exploring, or what projects did you really get behind back then? There wasn't as much as there is now, obviously.
Really tragic story, actually, for me, because, at the time, there weren't the exchanges there are now. So it was really like talking, if it's the wild, wild west right now, that was like the wild, wild, wild west.
Right.
Like, things were gone, and then it was just, who knows. So for example, I saw Ripple when it was 0.0000 something US dollar, right? And it was like, it seemed too hard to acquire because you couldn't just go into exchange and get it. You had to like download the download the whole thing and then kind of get it that way. Or I was buying stuff on eBay because that was before eBay cracked down on it. I guess you can't even buy it on eBay anymore. And the tragic part is at one point I had $2,000 in Quark coin. So you can look that up. But if I'd had that same $2,000 in Ripple, whenever I had that run up, that'd have been like multi-million-dollar worth of Ripple.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh man, there's a lot of stories like that.
There is.
Oh yeah.
It's a mental war of attrition to get back into it and try to learn trading like legit with legit exchanges because they just weren't there. And then life happened. Met my wife. You're kind of like, life goes on, and like, yeah, I know about all the crypto stuff, but it kind of moved on without me. And so now I'm like catching up, so to speak.
Yeah. You've been diving in really, really hard. Tell me a little bit about the website that you have. How it's procinctu.info. Is that correct?
Yeah. So it's a Latin word, procinctu, and that means to be ready, prepared for battle. That started. It started as, well, I chose a Latin name because I'm Catholic, and it seems like that was meant to be for a reason, which I'll say briefly. But the website in itself, it was started as like a challenge to conventional wisdom. So it wasn't just currency stuff. It was government and food and health and a whole bunch of stuff like that. Like, showing people about kefir and the beneficial bacteria in your gut, stuff like that,
Sure.
As just one tangent, then on and on and on. So that's where it started. It since has made a really hard right turn into it's mostly actually Catholic based now, and then I sprinkle in the crypto stuff and the other stuff still because it's something I really believe in, and I actually think it's kind of all connected in a way. Right. But so right now it's mostly Catholic based.
Sure.
That's what the origins were, and it's still there.
Gotcha, man. Well, I appreciate sharing that. So I know you couldn't see this, but I brought it over into the focus, so it's going to be there for people to see your Twitter and everything and the website, just in case you guys ever want to check that out. So, I mean, as far as government's concerned, I mean, you've done a lot of research into just governments and cryptocurrencies. Where do you see government adoption happening with cryptos? Like, is there going to be a coin where America creates its own blockchain and we go digital, or are they going to use one of the coins as a backing, or what's your opinions on that, if any?
Well, generally, I distrust government just on its face. And as far as like if they're going to have a Fed coin, or you hear bantered about, they could, but they also might just co-opt what's already there because, as you know, private people do things a lot better and more efficient than government almost ever does.
Yeah.
So I would just think they would co-opt, but I'm not saying that there won't be a Fed coin. I think they'd be benefit more just to co-opt and kind of take advantage of what's already there.
Yeah. Brian, would it be called FedCoin, or is that just a dumb name? Will they create something else?
I have no idea. I have no idea what they're planning on doing. It just seems like the big banks and legislation work together or have worked together in the past. And I know that Ripple is obviously everyone wants to say that's a cryptocurrency, blah, 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 blah. But that's a big bank coin, and who knows what's going to happen. The most challenging thing that the government and just the private sector has all together is that this is a decentralized technology. So, a true cryptocurrency blockchain project will have that element to it, which will allow for anyone in the entire world to access that blockchain, access that ledger, and trade amongst each other. So as far as, privatizing a blockchain, it can be done. It has been done. But there's also permission chains too. So I don't know if it's something like they create a permission chain and only allow US IP addresses to access that chain, but it gets very, very technical and it's beyond my pay grade. So I have no idea.
I mean, because that would be like intranet versus internet, right? I
Sure.
mean, you have, if they're going to create their own. So when you guys talk about Ripple being a big bank coin, I mean, is that something that, because the guy who was really the creator behind it, I mean, he was not a government, backed by the government. He was just working on his own, and they just kind of teamed up. Is that right?
I'm paralleling the bailouts back in 2008 from the government to the big banks and the connections there with there's a relationship between the big banks and the United States government. And I think everyone knows that. So that's why I would say Ripple was created by the big banks. Whether you can look down all the different bread trails to get there, but look at Blythe Masters. Look at the woman who actually created the credit default swap, and she's a part of, I forget the name of her blockchain consulting group, but they're there to help implement Ripple. And it's how it's all intertwined is just really not ironic, but I'm not surprised by it by any means.
Yeah.
A question I do have for you, Travis, is your opinion of Satoshi Nakamoto and who it may be, or what's your theory behind the whole creation of this, if you've gone down that deep of a exploration?
Well, I wasn't expecting that question, I guess. I guess I would just that there was that documentary on Netflix, and I thought that was good because it kind of left you with it could be a one person, or it could be the conglomerate of people, and you'll see some of the conspiracy websites saying that was literally the CIA or the government literally made the coin.
Right.
I don't think I believe that. So I don't know, to answer your question. I don't want to make a guess. I don't know. But obviously, from what I can tell, whoever was behind it has the same sort of distrust as I do and a whole bunch of other libertarian people did at the time that got it really going. Whereas now we're talking about blockchain tech with people, and you guys talk about getting it into healthcare industry and all these different industries, right? But the actual essence behind Bitcoin was literally because of the distrust of government, and it was literally cryptocurrency, right? So and here it opened up this whole other thing, which is great. But yeah, the whole thing behind it was, I think, the distrust of government.
Yeah, there has to be some disruption in order for an innovation to really birth. And we saw the disruption with, from a financial aspect with Bitcoin, and the birth of the blockchain out of Bitcoin is phenomenal. But I still think, and everyone wants to say, Bitcoin's so anonymous. It's really not that hard to track where people's Bitcoins are and who's spending Bitcoins here and there. So, that's came also with the innovation. People have developed, block explorers, and people are able to search IP addresses. So to really have that autonomy behind a certain cryptocurrency, listen, it's like everyone knows where my money is, my USD is, right? Well, not everyone, but at least the people who hold it and everything, they control it. So when you become your own bank, should you be granted with the possibility or with the option to remain anonymous, I don't see why not. It's your money. It's your property. You own it. So why should you have to disclose with people? Now, if you're going to an exchange and that exchange wants to make sure there's no anti-money laundering or nefarious activity going on, they could say, okay, listen, you can come use our exchange, but you need to sign up. You need to give us, driver's license or whatever it may be to be able to use their service. But technically, you don't really need any type of identification to hold cryptocurrencies.
Right.
It just may be harder to exchange it or to find people who want to buy it or sell it, So it's finding that market. It's become a little bit more mainstream now. That's why we're seeing that the SEC and the regulators coming in and putting a little bit more of regulatory framework around it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite blockchain project that's currently in the works, Travis?
Actually, not really. There's a couple things I'm looking at down the road. You guys mentioned EOS.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I noted to bring up, because one of the previous episodes you guys were talking about, the ICO and how there's a lot of frauds and scams going on, and there aren't any A+ ICOs to look at. So I wanted to bring up there's a website, Search Engine. I don't know if you heard of it, but they have a few blockchain related ICOs, and it seems like they actually go through the process of being SEC compliant. And I actually figured out I knew about them from a company called Gab. It's a social network.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems like the Twitters and the Facebooks and the Googles are all they're literally, in my mind, they're government tech too, right?
Well, let's look at the frickin' Facebook. I just saw today Zuckerberg has to go testify in front of Congress. It's crazy, man. Data is key, and financial data is key too. You can have spending habits, investing habits, all of that. So that's another thing. Should that remain private or not? It sounds like a search engine, this ICO list may act like in the future perhaps a rating agency for ICOs.
I'm trying to pull it up right now. So it's called Search Engine.
Yeah, they do a bunch of crowdfunding things, right?
Mm.
And so because of the whole Twitter thing, so being, extreme conservative radical person that I am, right? And I, get your information from people. They, the Twitters and the YouTubes do a purge of certain individuals who maybe are talking about the Second Amendment at the wrong time, kind of thing, And so they're literally purging people and videos who've they have things worked out with Twitter with ads or YouTube with revenue, so they play by the rules, and here they're getting blacklisted just because of their beliefs or whatever they're saying that's not even illegal to say. And so Gab is a social media that counters that, because you can literally go on there and it's free speech stuff, right? And so with Gab, they're actually doing their own ICO for kind of like a social media token amongst their own group. And through that is where I saw that there's actually a few other ICOs on that search engine website. And Start Engine also, I noticed, has an actual ICO summit. It's in April. I think it's in California somewhere, where they actually have a group get together, and it looks to me like that's the most vetted that I've seen as far as being SEC compliant with ICOs.
Interesting. So how would you say Gab is Gab different or better than Steemit would be? Or is that going to be
I haven't regularly used Steemit.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much a safe haven for anybody to go and not worry about getting locked out or.
Sure.
I mean, I have obviously there's stuff that's immorally wrong, like pornography you can't post on there, but anything that's First Amendment protected, you're good.
Gab. It's a good name too. That's smart. Pretty easy to recognize. I mean, yeah, I think the social media component of a lot of the blockchains is going to be interesting, because that's like we were saying. I mean, if there are the good ones and there's the bad ones, and when I say bad, more or less just simply meaning what is their goal? They're going to try to replicate Facebook, or they're going to try to replicate Twitter, or they're going to go down a different road. Because the movie that's coming to mind, I I know the movie. I can't think of the movie title, but I'm going to describe it to you, Brian. It was like this guy was creating this. It was almost like Ex Machina, where this guy creates this insane data provider, and everyone was using it. He was just selling data straight to the government, and it was pretty much just tapping into everyone's computers. It was like a huge community. I was like, that sounds so much like Google. I mean, it was pretty much making fun of Google, just saying that the data that these privately held companies do sell to the government is outrageous. And that's when the whole Apple thing came down, where you had Apple pretty much refused to give open that guy's phone, even though he committed something, he did something wrong, allegedly. They wouldn't give him, or they wouldn't give the government any of that data on the phone, because like, hey, dude, that's a private person's phone that he purchased. That's his property. You can't just ask us for it. We're not going to give it to you. And I think they took a good stand in that.
Well, now I think that's clouded. Actually, it's funny, clouded, but they actually. I don't know if you're aware of the Cloud Act that they just got through on that omnibus bill last week.
I'm not. Tell me about it.
Okay, so the Cloud Act is the clarifying overseas use of data act, okay? And they snuck it into the omnibus bill, so it didn't get a straight up and down vote on its own. It was in the omnibus bill from last week. And that it literally gives the government, government being like the police or intelligence agencies or whatever, it gives them the ability to use Facebook, Google, Twitter, anybody like that has data stored overseas. It gives them the ability to use it in court, is the way I understand it. Like before, I guess they could get the data technically, but they couldn't use it legally in court. I guess this allows them to do that.
Wow.
It also, it's a horrible erosion of privacy. But and then also there's a thing in there with executive agreements where the president can work out an executive agreement with another country where another country can treat a U.S. citizen not by U.S. citizen laws. They can do their own laws to get data, and then the executive agreement they can then exchange. So it's very, and I bring that up because, with it's not so much, it doesn't seem like it's going to affect crypto directly because I guess, there's no blockchain. You don't have stuff with Twitter and Facebook. And sure. if you send email on Google, be smart. Obviously you don't, because everything that you send with Google is Google's.
Yeah.
You can be smart with it. But I think that shows the intent again of what the government or people in power would like to do, because they actually would like to circumvent certain amendments that we have in our Constitution or our Bill of Rights to get a certain aim, right? And so we just have to be cognizant that that's their intent, right? So that intent can be applied to us in other areas.
You taught me something new, man. I had no idea. Yes, I'm pulling this up. You guys might not be able to see it, but I'm pulling up on my screen. So it's up until last week, the U.S. could only access data stored overseas through mutual legal assistance treaties, MLATs. With an MLAT, two or more nations put into writing exactly how they're willing to help each other with legal investigations. The Senate votes on each one and must get 2/3 approval to pass. Whoa, that is wild. Yeah, Cloud Act. Man, that's interesting. I had no idea. I did not hear about that at all. Shoot. Congress passed the Electronic Communications Privacy Act in 1986. That was interesting. That was pretty quick, actually. Electronic Communications Privacy Act back in '86. Wow, 30 years ago. Good for them. Well, that's very interesting. What would you think is the most autonomous project then, Brian? That could, as far as protecting people's data, is it Monero or what would?
Monero's there. I think Zcash is one of the first. So
Zcash, Monero, Dash could be, Verge could be. And what's another one? Komodo, maybe?
Yep.
Can you guys tell me more about Zcash? I don't really know that much about that one.
You can take that.
Oh, man, there's a great podcast on where is it? It is on it's an NPR podcast. It's phenomenal. And it tells the story of Zcash and how it was created and
how we built this. Is it that one?
No.
Okay.
No. I have it right here. Hold on. but they discussed the birthing process. It's Radiolab. They discussed the project of how Zcash was created, and the guy who came up with this concept had a bunch of different nodes, and there was a sequence of events onto how you can launch the blockchain, and you needed to make sure that in the sequence of events there wasn't disruption, because then it could have been a faulty blockchain at its birth. Also, you had to have a secure hardwire connection. So all of this, it was like really crazy, because the guy who was birthing this whole process was in a hotel room that he rented. He made sure no one was with him. He plugged in hardline, blah, 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 blah. And the reporter was in there, and the reporter couldn't record anything with cameras or any of that. Mm-hmm. Cell phones were turned off. And during the process of launching the blockchain, one of the cell phones turned on, and then there was this echo in the room. And they got freaked out because they thought someone activated the microphone in the cell phone. So it was like, it's a phenomenal podcast, and it's like, is Zcash really secure? Did someone really tap into that blockchain? Because if you control 51%, you know what 51% attacks are. But if someone has source code and can redo the whole blockchain, and I mean, it was a crazy to actually think about how this autonomous blockchain, it could maybe be controlled by one individual. And you look at Bitcoin with Satoshi Nakamoto, and you know, this is a crazy time that we live in, that people believe in these digital currencies as something of value. And you know, I do. I mean, I do, and I think that it's all to each their own. The hard thing, though, is to recover. It's just, Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, it's just like the dot-com boom. It was a hype machine, right? Everyone was like, Bitcoin. They didn't even know what it was. They didn't even know what a blockchain was. They didn't know how it worked. They didn't understand the benefits as to what this was doing to our world. It was just like a fad, right? It was just like any other fad that people jump on board with. This one just made them money.
Right.
So, and there was really no one to fault with Bitcoin. With other pump and dump, you know, ICOs, there's people to blame, but even that can be hard. But now we're coming out of that hype cycle, and now I think people are finally realizing, okay, if I'm going to get back involved with this, I should fully understand what this technology is doing. And that's everything from Zcash, Ethereum, what Ethereum's doing, what EOS is going to be doing. So when and there's so much information you can learn from, but when people start doing self-education and research, they're going to start to understand the benefits. And that's, I think, where we see the slow climb out of where we're at now, just like that of Amazon and Google back in the past, the .com.
I mean, because really in 2000, when the tech bubble happened and all the crashes happened, obviously you had a lot of very powerful websites, but a lot of the websites that people purchased were kind of more on the personal scale. You know, it'd be like TravisLovesSilver.com or JeremyNewsome.com. Or, I mean, they would have like your own personal, very smaller websites where people would kind of build their own traffic. But the Facebooks and the MySpace and the really big, huge e-commerce, granted, eBay was around before then as well, but when e-commerce and the social media space started really going strong, wasn't about that 2008, 2009 era, and it's only been about 10 years. I mean, that's how long Facebook's been around. It hasn't been massively that long, but with that technology, so you had the crash, and then through that you had all the innovation, all the people who lost a lot of money. You'll hear stories for the rest of our lives about people who had tons of money on Bitcoin, and then they lost it all because they bought it like 20,000 and they sold it, whatever it's probably gonna get to 3,000 maybe, and then you know, they didn't buy down there, and then it's going to go up to whatever it goes up to 5-6 years from now, and they're going to go, oh, you know, it's just the whole story over. I mean, I've seen these stories with real estate, with the tech bubble, 1907 in the S&P, and when the markets crashed. That was an interesting thing, is because people always talk about high frequency trading and algos and robots and how it can cause the market to flash down immediately. But I mean, 1987, you have one of the largest drops on record in one day, over 10% on the S&P. And I mean, 1987, you have no algorithms, you have no robots, right. Pure selling. So Again, saying all that to say, I mean, the speed at which these things move is definitely exponential, and it will grow. It'll recover faster than recover in the tech bubble. But the hype was the exact same, and it's. I mean, like I said, when you're changing companies that Long Island iced tea blockchain,
It's insane.
Kodak coin.
Yeah. So Travis, what's your analysis and outlook from being an early 13 adopter to where we're at now? How have you seen that growth, the hype, the whatever you want to call it, over the past 5 years to where we're at now, to where we are now, and to where we're going? What's your kind of analysis on that?
Yes, because you guys gave all those other examples, which are valid, but actually, Bitcoin itself, this is its fourth episode that the pump and hype and all that stuff, right? All the other previous ones, when it reached its all-time high or whatever you want to call it, the generational high of its cycle, I guess, the correction has been between 75 and 98%. So I'm not talking about all-time high. Whenever you're, for example, in this last run-up in December, there were several all-time highs on the way up. I'm talking about the generational high, right? It's in 2011, let's say the high was, it's kind of hard to say exactly because, different exchanges, or there weren't exchanges, but you could go from $32 in 2011 down to $2, right? That's a 98% drop. And so I'm sure at the time people were like, oh, this Bitcoin stuff's garbage, but $32 at $2, right? But then that too was a new support, a new base, because before that the base was 2 cents, right?
Right.
And so then with the new base, it goes up to $260 some in 2013, and then that time the crash is down to around 60, right? That's 77% or so. Okay, that's the second one. Third one would be in 2013 to 15, goes all the way up to 1166 or something, and after that, it went all the way down to 150, I think. And so that's a 80-something% correction or crash, whatever you want to call it. And so with our 19,600 or whatever it was this time, whichever exchange you're taking, we literally could go down to $1,200 for a Bitcoin and still be in the same – I'd still have the same mindset of $100,000 is next, just because that's what it's done the whole time. Wow. Anything between 1,200 and 4,400 would be that.
Would be doable.
Would be that 75 to 98% correction.
Wow.
And it wouldn't be normal. It'd be normal
for what Bitcoin has done.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, as far as normalcy and Bitcoin's a tough one to. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That makes sense.
I don't think it's quite going to get to 1,000 this time. I think more like that 3 to 5 area, something like that would be great. I think it's healthy. I just think there's too many people in it to go to 1,200 at this point. But hey,
that's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. It's but the thing is, when it does get down to that price, if it does, what would be the most interesting is people going, oh, is this going to be a good time to buy? Right? Because they're going to feel like, oh, it's going to crash, and then it slowly starts going up. And if it does have that breakout, that's going to be one of the greatest breakouts we've seen in a long, long time.
Another little thing, this is totally unscientific, but kind of look back at the what is at this point, right?
Right.
With the price of it anyway, sentiment. But if you look back at the last, the one from 2013 to 2015, that run up at the last one, right? You kind of had a 9-wave travel on the way down, and I don't know that that's going to happen again. But if that is happening again, it's kind of moving 3 times faster this time, which would put it again, I'm totally speculating. I'm just saying that would put the bottom somewhere around May, and then the turn up would be August this year if it keeps that pace. I don't know that it will. I'm just.
Travis, do you learn your trading techniques from Jeremy?
Well, not when I'm wrong.
No, he has learned. He has far surpassed a lot of my material. He's studied. We've traded together for a while, and Travis, I have to agree with you, man. I think that is a very, very healthy count for it to get down to like that's 3,000, 3,800 late May area. And I was pulling up some charts while you were chatting about it. That makes loads of sense because it really did when the 2013 high came in, like the $1,200 mark on Bitfinex. It took it from $1,200 to $200. It took it an entire year to get down there, and that's with the speed and with the scarcity and the oh my gosh, what is Bitcoin? What is it doing? That was with that mentality, but way back then. So now, I mean, being in December, that pullback, like you mentioned, I mean, it could go all the way till December of this year, still be down the $3,000 mark ish, right around there, and still have that threshold of this was normal even back in 2013. That's what it did. So, and then for it to really stabilize from 2013 into 2015 takes about 2 years. So, will we get that exact same speed again? Potentially, but I mean, if you're ever going to ask yourself, what's it going to do? I loved what you did. You have to go back and say, all right, well, this is what it's done in the past. So I'm just going to take my thought process on that and then just kind of project it into the future.
It just looks like, just by the eye, it looks like 3 times faster this time than last time. Just
Yeah, because it got – what was interesting too, Brian, is the 2000 – again, I know you can't see my screen, but it'll be in the recording. The last move, when it went from $130 to $1,100, $1,200, that was from October 2013, which is very close to when Travis was telling me about it. I think he told me about it in like August or something of 2013. And like he sent me a timestamp not too long ago. But somewhere around there, and then I learned about it from me and a buddy named Vinny were chatting about it. Vinny Patel he's in Austin now. He told me about it at 1,200. We were trying to figure out a way to short it because I was like, absolutely without question, it goes down from here. Right, 0 chance it goes higher, and I couldn't find any way to short it. So at that point, I mean, you didn't really have margin trading. You didn't have, like I said, dealing exchange. I don't even know if I didn't even know how to access Bitfinex at the time. So the only thing I could trade Bitcoin off of, I think, was Coinbase, and that started back in 2015, late 2015.
Yeah, or you're getting on local Bitcoins and meeting guys at bodegas in Antioch or something like that.
Bodegas in Antioch. I mean, the thing is, people always say, "Oh, well, if you had bought Bitcoin in 2009, how much money would you have?" Like, but that is a very hard thing to do.
Well, and you think about it, like what you're instructed to do is fill out a check and make sure you put in a memo, Bitcoin, send it back to this. I mean, it's just insane the way, like, all right, I'm going to send this guy $1,000. I have no idea who this person is. I don't know where he lives. We'll see if it works.
Yeah.
That was a huge risk in itself.
Sure, man. Oh boy. Whatever. So Travis, as far as Bitcoin, thank you for those thoughts, man. That's super great. Do you have any other thoughts on any other coins possibly?
No, I'm trying to get a list together of ones that I would get ready to look at whenever the bottom came in, but it's not really refined yet. So
okay, that's fair. But so sometime maybe around August, I like that. I like those projections. Makes sense.
Travis, have you ever thought about making, or taking advantage from a monetary or monetizing perspective, the information that you do know about this space, and like creating maybe a consulting firm, or you strictly just you're trading it, you're waiting until the right times and you're making moves, and hopefully you retire in 5 years. What is do you have a game plan in this spot, or is it basically just for self? When you get home from work, you can trade a little bit and hopefully make some extra cash.
I really don't. I guess with my website, there's no membership or anything with it. I kind of just want people of goodwill to get knowledge that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And if someone's willing to learn, then I'm willing to help them, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Cool. That's really cool.
And if there's money to be made in it, that's great. I'll post my Bitcoin address in the description.
Yeah, you should. You should just put it down there. Donation here. Send me donations.
Yeah. Now here's a question I got, Travis. Thoughts on gold and silver from here? What are those going to do?
like, okay, so I've flirted a little bit with the Elliott Wave stuff, and they are obviously we're in one more high would be like the B, and then I have a big C coming down, so they're like really bearish. But man, I just don't see how with our debt and the global debt and all of that stuff fundamentally, I guess this is how I got into like the crypto stuff too, is the whole manipulation of the metals,
Right.
It's just that what SLV and GLD have isn't necessarily what's above ground supply and what's being mined, and it doesn't exactly correlate the same.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be manipulated as I'm kind of jumping around here, but as you see, like with the Tether and the Tether, whatever we call it, they can literally just flood the market with a certain exchange with a trade to drive the price any which way. And it's like, I know I'm off the trail of gold and silver, I'll come back to it, but like I wrote in a blog post on the website about, if you have $2 billion worth of the Tether, and you might say how can that affect the $200 billion asset? Well, it's if you concentrate on one exchange and drive the price to one exchange, and then all the algos and everything that's traded with algorithm and stuff gets tripped, and then you have stops getting triggered. It's a cascading effect. And for me, I would love to see the Tether like gone.
Mm-hmm.
I wish it would crash, and then we could hopefully that happens this year, and then we can build a more sound, real build up on the next one, right? So like with the gold and silver things, all that stuff we're kind of fighting in the headwind. But man, on the fundamentals of it, like I have a little bit of physical left, which I didn't liquidate, and I'm going to keep it because that's like an insurance policy against a whole bunch of bad stuff that will happen eventually. And you don't know how exactly it's going to play out. Like for me, I'm even thinking like peak silver, where it's actually not going to be mined as readily as it is now. And as of now, it's such a finite, and so much of it goes into like the trash where you can't get it back out. When everything's in electronic, like it's really hard to recycle. So it's pretty much, you could count it as gone. And I don't know what the global supply is above ground right now, but it's not what it used to be. And the more people get a smartphone, there's a little tiny fraction amount of silver in that. There's in this computer I'm using right now. It's all over the place. And the more stuff's used, the less it's going to be available. Mm-hmm. And then there's going to come a time where the only thing that I can think of that can upset the long-term astronomical projection for silver would be some other thing that could actually be better than silver, whether that's some kind of metal that we don't know of that they can use in a computer or a cell phone that's cheaper and more malleable and better conductor. Like, and that's also similar to Bitcoin. Like the only thing that can upset Bitcoin in my mind for a future, like long term, is something better than Bitcoin. And then with that, there's developers on Bitcoin right now that are developing Bitcoin as we speak to make sure that doesn't happen, right? They're trying to implement the Lightning Network, which is in its infancy, but it's something, right? Yep. So that whenever the next run up, the scalability is able to be handled better than before. It's like all this stuff's going on. So I'm always going to be a big silver bug, but I'm learning not to expect it to happen anytime soon. Just kind of be insured when it does happen.
Yeah. I love those thoughts, man. Believe it or not, that was almost an hour.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, that was quick.
Yeah. Guys, man, it's every time we do this podcast, I love it more. I learn more, and I want to do it longer. It's like this, because I feel like right now, Travis, we could just keep going another 2 hours with this, like silver, and we could do like just Bitcoin scalability, next coin, next projects.
It's funny, Jeremy, because all of this started, which like you and I think I talked earlier today offline. It just started with us having our conversation about what we think gold is and Bitcoin and all this. And then we've had more and more intelligent conversations with all these guys. Yeah. And it's just like, now it's just kind of this is becoming much bigger, and the conversations bring in these elements that we haven't thought about, or perhaps we're expanding on. And man, thanks for being a patron, Travis. Appreciate it. Appreciate
Thanks
your support. And thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. I think it was awesome.
Great.
Yeah, this was fun, man. All right, well, folks from around the world, thanks so much for tuning in. Travis, Brian, me, you guys are absolutely fantastic. Enjoy the rest of your day, night, week, year, quarter, whenever you're watching this. Make sure love, live, learn. You guys are amazing. We'll see you later.
Have a blessed Easter, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, take care.